Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's council meeting for Monday, the 22nd of May, 2017. Would you please stand for the prayer? Lord, we ask that you guide us in our decision-making, protect us in the community we serve from all that is evil, and strengthen our unity for the welfare of the city. Amen. I would also like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today, and pay my respects to the elders, both past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. Thank you. This council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. AlburyCity accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Thank you. Conflict of interest declarations received by the Chair and disclosure of political donations. I have three. I have a notice from Councillor Vanderven, a pecuniary significant. My business has significant dealings with the company whose contract is being discussed. Type council meeting 22nd of May, CM 18.1 curbside waste collection contract update. It is a confidential item and the action is leave the chamber. I have one from Mr. Jenkins. It's pecuniary significant. Brief description of conflict is director in the organisation, and it is CM 14.4, and the action is leave the chamber. And Mr. Ferris, it is pecuniary significant, director in the organisation, CM 14.4, review of organisational structure, leave the chamber and not take part in discussions is the action. Thank you. Mr. Zaknich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This advice is to the council meeting regarding the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. Section 147 requires a person submitting planning applications or submissions regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of council. Reportable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on Council's website or from the Customer Service Centre and must be lodged in accordance with the Act. The forms are also available at the back of the chamber during meetings. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific matters contained in the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. Accordingly, the provisions of Section 79C1 of that Act are set out in the Council Officer's report detailing issues to be considered. The Local Government Act 1993, Section 375A requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the council or a council committee. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of a function of council under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, including a decision relating to a development application, an environmental planning instrument, a development control plan or a development contribution plan under that Act, but not including the making of an order under Division 2A, Part 6 of that Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaknich. Apologies, I have one. Councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council receive, note and accept the apology of Councillor Cameron and grant leave of absence for the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. No mayoral minute. There are no action plans. We have CM7, confirmation minutes of previous meetings, CM 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on Monday the 24th of April 2017. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday the 24th of April at 6 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Yes, happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, just to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There appears to be no questions or debate. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. CM 7.2, minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on Monday the 8th of May 2017. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on Monday the 8th of May 2017 at 6 16 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey, do you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'm happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. CM8, reports from council committees. Report 8.1, report from Planning and Development Committee held on Monday, the 8th of May 2017. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to receive and note the report.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. And a seconder, I have Councillor Thurley.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thank you.
There being no questions or debate, I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. CM 8.2, report of the Engineering and Works Committee. Councillor Vanderman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the recommendations included in the report from the Engineering and Works Committee meeting held on Monday, the 8th of May 2017 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Councillor Stutchbury.
Happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman, do you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There being no question or debate, I'm happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM 8.3, report for Community and Cultural Committee meeting held on Monday, the 15th of May. Councillor Conn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the recommendations included in the report from the Community and Cultural Committee meeting held on Monday, the 15th of May 2017 be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Yes, I'd like to second that, please, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Conn, do you wish to speak to anything in those minutes?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Happy to put those. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. CM 8.4, reports from the Finance Administration Committee. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that the recommendations included in the report of the Finance Administration Committee meeting held on Monday, 15th of May be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Happy to second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, just to speak to that?
Just to make one comment before full council, I did note in the committee meeting the excellent lost time injury frequency rate that this council has now achieved. It's come down from when I first started on council from above 10 to 2.5, saving the council a lot of money and sending our workers home injury-free every day. So it's a brilliant result.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. On that note, I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. CM 9.1, reports from community forums. Report from the community forum regarding revised planning proposal, Willowbank Road, East Albury, held on Monday, the 1st of May 2017. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Vandervan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move that the council receive and note the report from the community forum regarding revised planning proposal, Willowbank Road, East Albury, held on Monday, 1st of May 2017.
Thank you, Councillor Vandervan. Councillor Stutchbury.
Yes, I would like to second that motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan, just to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any further question or debate? I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Notices of motions or notice of rescissions. I have CM 10.1, alcohol prohibited area extension. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to put forward the motion that the Albury City Council establish an alcohol prohibited area in the War Memorial Monument Hill precinct for the period midnight to midday on Anzac Day each year.
Thank you, Councillor King. I have a seconder, Councillor Thurley.
Happy to second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. I have a speaker against. Councillor King, would you like to open debate on this item? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, councillors, I've been approached by some constituents regarding the members of the public at the War Memorial drinking during the dawn service last Anzac Day. It was the opinion of these constituents that it showed disrespect to the war dead and those that returned and their descendants. The War Memorial is a sacred place to all at all times, but none more than on Anzac Day. At this time, it is the focus of Albury. It is a magnificent memorial, none of which that I know of that matches it in the region. Those who attended on Anzac Day came from all walks of the community. More importantly, children came with mums, dads, grandparents to learn the importance of remembrance and to hear of the lessons and experience of war. To see people drinking at this solemn time is shameful, to say the least. My comments in the Board of Mail really wrap up what I have to say and generally reflect my views on drinking at a special time, such as Anzac Day, but more importantly, that I think that it doesn't present well, and that as councillors we should be looking at bringing in what we can to stop this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. I have a speaker against, and I have a question. Councillor Glacken, question?
Yes, if I may, through you, to the most relevant member of staff, what information do we have about this incident? What history do we have? And what evidence per se do we have of this issue? Is this an ongoing? Is this a one-off? I'd really like a lot more background on this rather than this being something that's been in the paper twice about the same incident and we don't have particular detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Mr Jenkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. At this stage, I don't have any additional information about the consumption of alcohol at Monument Hill area apart from the instance that has been raised tonight. If council were to consider having a prohibited alcohol area at the Monument Hill, part of the process for that declaration of that area would be gathering more information on what had happened in that area over a period of time, certainly consultation with the police in terms of their understanding of what happens with alcohol consumption in that area, and then that would be part of the information provided in council considering whether that area should be declared at the end of a consultation period.
Councillor Glacken,
Thank
do you
you.
have a follow-up?
No, that's fine for now.
Thank you. I have another question from Councillor Vandervan. You okay if I take that question, Councillor Doxey? Yep. Councillor Vandervan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to get some understanding of what would be necessary as far as if we were to vote for this tonight, as far as what would be necessary for signage. Would the signage have to be there all year round just to say there's a 12-hour period where it's an alcohol-free zone? And what sort of cost is associated with it?
Mr Jenkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Certainly there does have to be signage erected for an alcohol prohibited area. I would have to refer to the Act to be certain of whether that needs to be there all year or whether it can just be there for the event. At this stage, I'd have to take that question on notice as to whether it needs to be there all year. But certainly in terms of for the period that the signage needs to be at the entrance to the location, to the area, and at intervals within the area that's declared an alcohol prohibited area.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, a follow-up, and I'm not sure whether I can do it at this stage, but I'd like to then move an amendment that we defer this for further information. I support the sentiments, what Councillor King's trying to achieve, but I'd really like to have some more information for staff around the ramifications of this. And I think that we've raised it here at a council meeting, and I just would like some more information around the questions that have been asked. Happy to support it if it's it turns out to be a worthwhile project. And I understand the sentiments, but I'd like to move that we move an amendment that we defer this issue to the next council meeting for further information. If I can get a seconder for that.
Councillor King, would it be in your interest to consider that as an amendment to your motion?
No, Mr Mayor. I can't see any reason for deferring it. It's a pretty simple initiative and motion, and that, again, my sentiments are that I can't see any plausible reason why people need to be drinking alcohol at the War Memorial at 5 a.m. in the morning on Anzac Day.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Glacken, you happy to second that amendment?
I'm happy to second that amendment. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So the amendment, as we say it for the purpose of the board, is defer the report?
Defer the decision or defer the issue, the motion, until further information in the next council meeting, or even through to the Community and Culture Committee meeting, if that's necessary. It's only a couple of weeks to. We've got another 11 months before the next Anzac Day for this to be implemented anyhow.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. We had a seconder for this motion in the first place, didn't we? Councillor Dutchbury? Thurley. Yeah, we haven't got any. It says Councillor King moved. So I've got an amendment before us, which has been moved by Councillor Vanderman and seconded by Councillor Glacken. So that's the amendment before us, councillors. Councillor Conn, did you have a question in relation to the amendment or the general motion?
It's with regard to the general motion.
So would it be prudent to have it now, or do you wait to see this amendment's won or lost?
I'd appreciate the opportunity to ask it now.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question's through to the most relevant member of staff, please. Just in clarifying what the alcohol prohibited area means, it's my understanding we currently have a similar alcohol prohibited area in place at Noriel Park on Australia Day. Is that correct?
Mr Jenkins.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Council has alcohol-free zones and alcohol prohibited areas. Alcohol-free zones apply 365 days of the year and, without having a map in front of me, largely apply to the CBD area. We have an alcohol prohibited area at the moment, which is Noriel Park for Australia Day and has certain time periods around it. And prohibited areas relate to time-limited alcohol-free zones, I suppose. So it's in the intention of staff to bring a report to Council in June in relation to all of those areas, because they're all due for renewal. The existing areas will have a report before Council in June in relation to those.
So, Mr Councillor, do you have a follow-up? Or you happy with
Thank you,
that?
Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman, did you wish to open debate on this amendment?
Yes, so speaking for the amendment against the original motion, look, I think that all of the discussion so far indicates that it would be prudent to wait for a couple of weeks before those reports on all the alcohol-free zones and alcohol prohibited zones, and we can get the extra information that I've looked for tonight. That is, if the question was taken on notice as far as the signage and that's concerned. So I just think it would be prudent. I fully support this, but I also understand that it's an iconic area of Albury, and I don't think we've already complained about the number of telephone poles, electricity poles, wiring and everything else that's up there. We've got an absolutely fantastic master plan that's being put in place, and now we're going to put extra signage up there potentially all year round. I just think we need to have a look at this in the full light of day with the information that's going to be provided, and I don't think there's any harm in deferring this for a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. I have a speaker against, Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm fully in support of the original motion as proposed, and I'm against the amendment. It's a pretty simple motion that's been proposed, and it covers 12 hours of the day on Anzac Day between midnight and midday. And I don't see what a report is possibly going to add to this other than the time taken for the staff member to create the report. So I don't think that it's necessary at all.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. I have a speaker for, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through you, to speak for the amendment and against the original motion. And it being only that I speak against the original motion, that I'm not certain that this is, the original motion was a complete and holistic approach to that area. And I would much prefer us to look at this in a more complete way, and I think deferring it is most appropriate. I remember reading in the newspaper this week that Councillor King was against drinking on the streets in daylight hours. And when we use that as a reference, I think that, again, is not looking at the bigger picture. There's 24 hours in a day. Daylight hours is just one portion of a day, of a week, within which people may or may not be drinking on the streets, whether that's in accordance with the regulations or not. I would much prefer us to look at it holistically and consider, is it appropriate that people be drinking alcohol at that location, the War Memorial of Albury, at any time of the day or night, any day of the year? So I would much prefer us to look at that space for a year. It might be that it was a one-off incident that Councillor King has had reported to him. It may not be. I just don't know. So I really want us to look at this appropriately and deal with it in a significant way to ensure that we treat this monument with the respect that it deserves. I'm also mindful of the fact that ensuring and policing alcohol-free zones or alcohol-free areas or alcohol-prohibited areas are something that we need to be discussing with other organisations. It's not just about what we as a council would declare, because someone else would need, my understanding is that someone else would need to police the alcohol prohibited area. So I think we should at least be consulting the organisations that would need to be dealing with it. And so to be dealing with this tonight is very, I believe, short-sighted in as much as there is a bigger picture to all of this. And while I support the sentiment, I'm not certain that the approach will come to an outcome that will actually prove to have been the right way to have gone about it. So therefore I speak against the original motion and support, as I have seconded, the deferment, which is the amended motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gluckin. I have a speaker against, Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak against the amended motion. Basically, as a past member of the Liquor Accord, I'm very well aware of the culture of drinking that occurs in streets and places around this city. I don't even think it's necessary to consider the iconic status of the War Memorial. I just believe that it's a bad thing to be happening. And if you say then that the War Memorial is special, and especially on that one day, then I think this is a quite appropriate move. On Australia Day, we've had nothing but trouble in Norriel Park when we allowed drinking all day, and now we control it, and drinking is banned, I think, until 5 p.m, so that what used to happen before is by about 4 in the afternoon, everyone was drunk and stupid. I just don't believe it's necessary to drink at dawn at the War Memorial. And why I'm voting against this and really in effect for the original motion is that this drinking is unnecessary. I don't care whether it's one-off, or it happens a lot, it's irrelevant to me. We should say drinking at this site between the hour of midnight and whatever midday the next day should be banned. I don't think it's difficult with signs. Given the way we set that place up for the dawn service, A-frames on 3 approaches would be sufficient to warn people that drinking is not permitted. We don't have to erect lots of signs and do lots of stuff. So I oppose the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Councillor Doxey was to speak for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will speak strongly for the amendment and certainly against the original motion. I had a discussion with Councillor King over the weekend and I gave him my indication of where I'd be going tonight with this. I spoke yesterday at our sub-branch meeting about this and there were 50-odd people there present. I'm not sure how many people spoke with Councillor King and said it's an issue. No one in this chamber was at the dawn service and saw this happen. The RSL president who conducted the service didn't even know about it for a start. you would think that the veterans themselves would be the one jumping up in the air about this. They have not done that. This is a knee-jerk reaction to a simple one-off issue. Putting up signs and telling people you can't drink it there is a nothing. It is a waste of council's time and effort putting a sign up. Who's going to police it? Who's going to pay for it? There's no need for it. And I'm just surprised that some of the councillors are actually going to support this motion. It is a nothing. We can't control everything, and I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to get further upset about it, because I spoke to the veteran community. There's been no consultation with police. There's been no consultation with the veteran community in the first place. And I would have thought that if we're going to have an alcohol prohibited area anywhere in this city, that there's been discussion about it first before a knee-jerk reaction comes to council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doxey. Councillor Conn speaking against.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to briefly speak against the amendment, now that we've had the clarification from staff that this is the same legislation that covers our alcohol prohibited area at Noriel Park, it doesn't seem incredibly complex to enact this. It's for a short period of time over a small area, and I don't think it needs the level of detailed work that some of the other councillors are suggesting. I appreciate Councillor Glacken's point that we need to be having a holistic view of alcohol in the city, and I appreciate that we're going to do that in the next couple of months. We'll be able to revisit other areas in the rest of the city, but I don't think that's a reason not to move the original motion tonight, and I'll be supporting the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Conn. I have a question from Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To the appropriate member of staff, let's assume we're now going to put a sign up. Is the sign going to be illuminated so someone walking up the hill from Dean Street is going to see it and drop their cans if they intend to bring them up there? How are we going to police it? Who's going to police it? And what's the penalty going to be? Thank you.
Mr Jenkins.
From my understanding, the guidelines in relation to signage for alcohol prohibited areas indicates that they should be the entrance to areas and as visible as possible. My understanding is they don't necessarily need to be lit at night. In terms of who would police the area, the New South Wales Police have authority to take action. It's under a Local Government Act, I think it's 382A. And the only action they can take is to confiscate or tip out the liquor.
Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Doxey?
I'm right, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There appears to be no further questions or debate. Councillor Vandermage to close the debate on the amendment. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't think a simple deferral for 2 weeks would cause so much controversy on the basis of the some of the arguments that have put tonight. I'm gobsmacked that we can't have some more information come forward. As I said, I fully support what Councillor King's trying to do, and I just can't see what harm a couple of weeks delay on this to have some of the questions that have been asked tonight that were taken on notice. And we're also getting a report on the other alcohol-free zones and the alcohol prohibited areas. So I'm gobsmacked that we can't just vote for a simple deferral for 2 weeks, as the majority of people here support a move of this nature and are abhorrent of the fact that there has been some drinking reported up there. Again, I'm gobsmacked. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. So I'm putting the amendment now. Amendment is put on the board. All those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is lost. Now we're reverting to the original motion, which was before us, and I believe we had a speaker for and a speaker against. So I'm after a speaker for. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just very briefly, I fully support the motion as proposed by Councillor King. Anzac Day, like many of our special occasions, perhaps has a more sombre part as well as the celebratory part. and drinking and playing two-up and other things do occur on this day, and I think that it's pretty reasonable for those things to start after midday, whilst the more sombre part of the day is dealt with between the dawn service and midday. So I'm fully in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. I have a speaker against, Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I, like Councillor van der Ven, are disappointed that we just can't wait until we get a report. And at least we could speak to police, we could speak to the veteran community. You know, it's a community memorial, and it's the veterans that should be asked in the first place what they think about something as simple as this. I know their feeling. I spoke to them yesterday about it. And I'm just disappointed that it's just the way it's going, or appears to be going. And has no one ever heard about having a rum toddy after a dawn service? Well, if that was the case, you're now going to stop it. That would not happen now, because you're going to put a sign up that no one's going to see in the dark coming up the hill. So there it is. I'm not happy about it, and I'll vote against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dox. I have a question, Councillor Thurley.
I'm not even sure that any member of staff can answer this, but perhaps they can. Can I ask, does the SS&A Club serve rum toddies early in the morning?
Mr Jenkins, you were able to answer that question? You look quite pensive.
Through you, Mr Mayor, no, I'd have to take the question on notice.
Thank you. Mr Zaknich.
Sorry, not to answer the question, but just to clarify the process. If council were to endorse the motion, there's still a public consultation process that we need to go through. So the police, the Returned Servicemen's League, the broader community would need to be consulted by way of public notice and direct consultation for this matter, then come back to council at the end of that period. Notwithstanding the questions that you've asked around signage and the like, that process still needs to take place.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr Zaknich. Councillor van der Ven, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that's now two questions without that have been taken on notice. Is that correct? There's now two questions that have been taken on notice?
Two questions, yes. Yes.
Is that right?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, there is no further debate for or against. Councillor King, did you wish to close the debate? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I've heard the comments and I take on board what everyone said. I hope that my motion is taken in the way it's intended. I spoke about children being at the War Memorial and their parents, and a good example being set. We also need to remember that it's around 5 a.m. in the morning, and it's not a long time. Consulting with the police, I'm also on the community police advisory committee, and we discussed that at our last meeting. And the licensing sergeant reported that there were a number of street offences from people who were urinating in town. He issued a number of tickets that people were found urinating on the Legacy Memorial, obviously drunk enough not to know what they were doing. And I don't think that we need to give people a kickstart at that time of the morning. People are going to end up the way they're going to end up sometime during the day. There's a lot of public drunkenness in the street walking around from Anzac Day, and there's somewhat of a blind eye shown to it. So I think just for this, couple of hours, it's in my opinion, it's not a big deal, and my comments in the paper pretty much reflect what I think, that people can hang on for a couple of hours. Certainly notification that it's a non-drinking zone will probably be well publicised in newspapers and other media outlets prior to that, and I'm sure council, if they take that on board, will actively promote the fact that the War Memorial is a alcohol-free zone for that period of time.
Thank you, Councillor King. On that note, I'm happy to put the motion. Those for the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We have 10.2 Cities Power Partnership. Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that AlburyCity joins the Cities Power Partnership organised by the Climate Council to celebrate, promote and support AlburyCity's ongoing work in sustainability.
Thank you, Councillor Con. Councillor Thurley.
Very happy to second this motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Councillor Con, did you wish to open debate?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. We've been invited to join the first round of this partnership, which is a national partnership of local councils working towards climate action. It's a phenomenal opportunity to put Albury on the map at a national level. We've already done some fantastic work in sustainability, particularly under the previous council, to give credit where credit was due in terms of energy savings, in terms of the halve waste strategy. And this is an opportunity to collaborate with other councils and receive national media attention. I've said more than once in this chamber before that climate change is the greatest challenge of my generation. I think that council should be taking as many actions as we can. This partnership gives us the choice of actions from a list of 32 that council would be deciding to take at a later date. This is a rather symbolic pledge that we support taking further action on climate change, that we want to work with other councils to that end, and it's a fantastic opportunity that I commend to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Con. I have questions. Councillor Vanderman, question?
Thank you. There's no clear indication, Mr Mayor, in the documentation that was attached to this about what was council's the council's obligations under this partnership, and I'd just like to get a better understanding from relevant member of staff about what our obligations are if we were to join this partnership.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Mr Dudley.
Through you, Mr Mayor, certainly I would suggest that perhaps Council may wish Council staff to consider to read in detail the pledges and the obligations and implications of taking on such a pledge.
Councillor Vanderman, you have a follow-up?
So we're being presented here with another motion that it appears that we might require some extra work to try and understand the full ramifications of joining this partnership. I'm disappointed that we've got a situation again for the second motion where we're trying to argue for more information. I know recently we had an opportunity to promote Albury on the world stage, but that was knocked back. And now we're doing it on the basis that we're going to promote Albury on the Australian stage. So I really would like to, again, perhaps move a motion to defer this until we can get some more information about the ramifications of joining the Cities Power Partnership, apart from the lovely brochure that was attached to this motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Councillor Vanderman, you're proposing an amendment on this particular item?
Proposing that we defer this motion again so that we can get some more information on the basis of Mr Dudley's answer to my previous question.
Thank you. Councillor, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Glacken, do you have a...
Happy to second the amendment that we seek further, along the lines of we seek further information.
Yeah.
And then I have questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll wait for that amendment to appear. So it's the same as the previous amendment. Defer report. Yep. Thank you. That was very quick. Very quick. No problem. Okay. So, Councillor Glacken, you have a question?
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. So the Cities Power Partnerships, noting the answer just given to Councillor Vandervan's question, I'm wondering if I could still, however, ask a couple of questions that may be possible for staff to answer. I don't know. So it might be that they need to take it on notice. I appreciate that Councillor Con is suggesting that the Cities Power Partnership will put Albury on the national stage. I believe that's the understanding I have. And it will be to celebrate the work done to date with regards to sustainability, or recognise the work done by AlburyCity with regards to sustainability. However, what in essence might other benefits be to council? What might the relationships be with the city's power partnership organisation? And what are the likely outcomes that we may achieve for our city and our community, our residents, and indeed our region if we were to join this organisation, notwithstanding the previous answer?
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Mr Dudley.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Certainly we've had a very quick cursory look at the pledges, and we do acknowledge the aspirational aspects of these pledges, and certainly they are focused on energy, renewable energy and transport. Certainly these are congruent to some extent with strategic actions included in Albury 2030 under the theme An Enhanced Natural Environment. It would be imprudent of me to advise that, not to advise that we should assess these for the merit to identify what benefits they have, and as I said before, also to assess these to identify if any implications they may have on council in providing such a commitment to these pledges.
Councillor Clark, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Vandervan, you have a question?
No, the question was asked
Okay.
by Councillor Clark.
No worries. So I have a speaker against. Councillor Con.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. Just
Are you open debate yet, Councillor, on the amendment? Sorry, Councillor Vandervan.
thank you,
I
Mr
got
Mayor.
lost in the haze.
You're going to turn me on? To turn my microphone on. Thank you. Look, again, on the basis of the couple of answers to questions by myself and Councillor Glacken, I feel it would be prudent for people to accept this amendment and to await some further information. We employ Mr Dudley specifically around that sustainability issue, and if he's urging some caution, I'm thinking that we should not try and second guess that particular issue. So I again urge councillors to support an amendment. Again, having my track record on the sustainability issues in this council, I'd like to point to that on the basis that I would fully support this, but I need to understand the issues around it before I actually vote for a motion of this nature.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vandervan. And Councillor Con wishes to speak against the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. In the attachments to this motion, there were 25 pages of detail provided about the partnership, which I'm disappointed that it seems some councillors haven't fully read. The commitment to the partnership gives us 6 months to select 5 actions from a list of a possible 32. At my first cursory reading, it appears we've actually already achieved at least 5 of those 32. In a cursory discussion briefly with Mr Zachnich, it appears the staff agree that we've fulfilled at least several of these pledges already. So in terms of a commitment, it remains for us to pick 1 or 2 actions from a list of 32 to achieve over the next 6 months, which is not a particularly big ask for the council. The issues in the 32 options are broad. We can choose from further energy savings, there's transport, there's advocacy and community education amongst those options. And if we were to choose to join the partnership tonight, I presume at a later council meeting we would then move the particular actions, which is where the cost or the risk would become a part of this. I believe the only risk at this stage is that if we join this and fail to meet the pledge, that would be a risk to Albury's reputation. But in terms of benefit, I can see huge benefit to our region. As Mr Dudley said, this lines up with Albury 2030, not only enhancing the natural environment, but as a leading community. We're already recognised as a leader within this region and to some extent within New South Wales on things like waste. And this is an opportunity to take that to a national scale. But it also gives us a benefit in terms of learning and expertise. The partnership would buddy us with 2 other councils. Other councils that have joined this partnership are as small as Bega to as large as Canberra. I'm sure in there would be councils of a similar scale to Albury from who we could really benefit from in improving our own works in this area. And I believe that if we join tonight, we will have sufficient time to discuss with staff which actions from the 32 we would choose to take. And I appreciate at that stage the time and the opportunity to discuss that with staff and fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conn. I have a speaker for Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you to speak for the amendment and against the original motion, in as much as the amendment is to defer the decision. It's not to vote against the opportunity that it appears this partnership may provide for our city and for our community, but it is to speak to simply allow due diligence to happen for all councillors to take part in a discussion with staff once staff have been able to delve further into the detail. There are inherent implications to, I believe there are inherent implications to these pledges, but it's only a belief because I'm not completely across this partnership organisation. Some of those implications would be budget and staffing implications. We are at the moment out to the public with reference to the budget. We have a works program that is in difficulty at the moment, in as much as the staff are trying very hard to keep our works program on schedule and on target. And there are many external factors that hamper staff in their attention to being able to achieve what we as councillors set for them to do, what is required by the community to be done. And to be undertaking a partnership without due diligence would mean that we are again asking our staff to do more without being able to be fully briefed, for them to be able to fully research what the implications might be. Councillor Conn has said tonight that there is a risk to council if we join and fail. I would prefer us not to have that risk put in front of us. I'd prefer for us to take the time to allow our staff to look at this in detail, to bring to us in a discussion opportunities that they see that we can undertake that lessen the risk, and for us to be able to do things properly. We are seen as AlburyCity Council, the Blewett recipient from last year. We're seen across the state and indeed nationally as a credible council that has dealt in a significant way with our sustainability for our community. And I think that we just need to make sure that we continue on that very credible path, and that we take the time, a matter of weeks only, to ensure that we undertake this correctly and fully, not simply rushing in and signing tonight, as Councillor Conn has suggested, signing up tonight and then making those decisions as to where we would go. I think we need to research this properly and to make the right decision and go then, once we've got that decision, set upon that path completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. I have a speaker against, Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As a member of the Sustainability Advisory Committee for now almost 5 years, and I think I could also claim to have worked very closely with Councillor Vanderven with regard to solar PV and other energy-saving matters, and I'm extremely pleased about what we've achieved. But this doesn't need any deferral. If we looked, for example, at the appendix that's on your iPads, the Partnership Action Pledge Renewable Energy, we do them. We do most of these things already. And in terms of budget and staffing implications, I very much doubt that there are significant implications in that context, because these are part of our 2030 commitments to sustainability and so on. They are things that we're already doing. If we look at things like one of the pledge, install renewable energy on council buildings, we've done it. There can't be too many left that we haven't installed them on. Use strategic and statutory planning processes to promote renewable energy. We do it. So this is a symbolic move, but one that gives us the opportunity to partner with other councils and to learn from them other ways, better ways, or to impart our ways to other councils and it's not about being on the nationwide stage as far as I'm concerned. It's about being a leader in our community and showing our community what's possible in terms of energy and sustainability. And I do agree entirely with Councillor Con that climate change is the biggest challenge faced by generations now, and we need to do things about it. This council has been doing things about it, and I don't think that signing up to this is any rushing in. It's part of the stuff we've been doing now for 4 years. So I speak against the amendment and I'll speak for the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. There appears to be no further speakers for or against or questions. Councillor Vanderman, do you wish to close the debate?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of issues. Now, from my understanding, this city's power partnership's about the sustainability as far as climate change is concerned. Now, we don't have that in our motion. It just says about sustainability. There's a lot of issues around sustainability. There's financial sustainability, so economics come into this. So the word sustainability is too all-encompassing as far as the city's power partnerships is concerned. Again, I challenge every councillor here that if you vote for this tonight, guarantee me that you've read every one of those 25 pages of that document so that you understand fully what you're getting into. I certainly have. I've got some questions, and I'm sure that other councillors have got questions as well. Again, it will not hurt for us to defer this to get the information on the questions that have been asked of Mr Dudley tonight. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Happy to put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is lost. Revert to the original motion. Councillor Con, did you wish to open debate on that motion? Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've obviously made several points for the original motion in speaking against the amendment, but just a couple of brief additions. I don't see this as a rush. We received the invitation to join this partnership on the 2nd of May. Yes, I do guarantee to Councillor Vanderven that I read every single word of the 25-page attachments. I've discussed them with the Mayor, I've discussed them with the General Manager, and I wouldn't have moved it at Council as a councillor and as the Deputy Mayor if I didn't believe it was the right thing to do for the city. We were elected to make this kind of decision without constantly referring to reports from staff. The motion tonight is a symbolic motion, and any future action which actually changes the operations of council will be done in consultation with staff and at future meetings with additional time. I don't think we need more time for the symbolic motion tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Con. Speaker against, Councillor Vanderman.
No, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move a motion that we an amendment to the original motion, and that says that and support AlburyCity's ongoing work in sustainability in relation to climate change.
Councillor Con, you comfortable with that?
I accept the amendment.
Councillor Con's happy to accept the amendment, Councillor Vanderman. And so is Councillor Thurley, is that correct? You're on.
I also am happy to accept the amendment.
Thank you. Yes, that's up on the board. So do we have any other speakers for or against? It would appear not. Councillor Condé, do you wish to close debate?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, on that note, I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Presentation deputations, there are none. Reports, minutes of committee and working parties, there are none. Documents for sealing. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, to move the recommendation as a motion with regards to sealing and authorising its seal and affix to the documents outlined below. There is one item A, lease between Albury City Council and Albury Tigers Club Limited, Albury Sports Club, Crown Reserve lease for term 2017 to 2039 in accordance with the option for extension of the original lease commencing May 1989.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Councillor Stutchbury.
I'm very happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, I have a question. You happy for me to take the question?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Vanderman, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this question is not so controversial. Just quickly, how does this lease impact on any potential developments in our, if you like, Riverside precinct, Botanical Gardens precinct that might occur into the future?
Jenkins?
This lease in question purely relates to the fenced area within the Albury Sports Ground. If there was to be any future developments that encroached upon the lease area, they would need to be negotiated with the Crown and the Albury Tigers.
Councillor Vander, do you have a follow-up?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vander. Thanks, Mr. Jenkins. Okay, so I'm happy there's no further discussion, and we've got a mover and seconder. Moved it. We haven't got a mover up there.
Councillor Glacken and...
Councillor Glacken, did you wish to close debate on that item?
No, and nor do I wish to open it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Officers' reports for consideration. 14.1 South Albury Levy Upgrade Feasibility Study Contract 17/00539. Councillor Vanderman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that Council accepts the tender from Water Technology Proprietary Limited for contract number 17/00539, South Albury Levy Upgrade Feasibility Study in the lump sum of $98,389.50, including GST.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Vanderman, just open debate.
Quickly, Mr. Mayor, a few words, and basically, again, good to see that well within our budget for this particular item.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. There being no further questions or debate, I'm happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM 14.2, the March quarter budget review. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council receive and adopt the revised budget estimates for the 2016-17 financial year and note the supplementary reports including the consultancy and legal expenditure and contract expenditure listing with attachments 1 to 9.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. And a second is Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, I have a question. Yes, happy for me to take the question? Thank you. Councillor Vandervan, question.
Yeah, I'm full of questions tonight, Mr. Mayor. I've looked through the in detail the report as it's here, but I can't seem to isolate anywhere where we're reporting on all of the tenders that have been sort of let over the last period of time in relation to how that's impacted on our budget. Could somebody provide some explanation of where we might be able to find that information so that I know that, and it won't be in this report, obviously, we're letting a tender tonight that's $33,600 below what we budgeted for. And there's been other tenders that have been significantly below what our budget estimates have been. So I'd like to see where those are as far as our, and isolate them specifically in our budget estimate updates.
Thank you, Councillor Mann, for the question. Very good question. Mr. Zachnich.
Thanks, through Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question. We can provide that information. It's certainly not provided in the standard quarterly budget review statements, but we can provide that separately. What we do provide, as you've noted, is a listing of the contract expenditure, so the tenders that have been awarded for the period. but we can provide an unders and overs assessment if that's would assist council's consideration.
Yeah, just to follow up, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that would assist, and I think it's one of those things that it would be nice to see what that impact has on our operating results as well as our forward projections when we can and look, there are ups and downs. There are some contracts that have been much more expensive than budget estimates, and I'd really like a detailed report on how that impacts on our overall budget going into the future.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to open debate on that item?
I'd just like to comment on one particular matter which was noted in the report, and that is that our service and efficiency review program savings of $397,000 within the general fund operations are still forecast to be achieved. I think that's a brilliant result.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. There being no further question or debate, did you wish to close debate on that, Councillor Thurley?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 14.3, the CCTV Policy Code of Practice and Standard Operating Procedure and Signage. Councillor Vanderman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the following motion that Council A endorse the draft CCTV policy, draft CCTV Code of Practice and Standard Operating Procedure, and draft CCTV signage. B, place the draft CCTV policy, draft CCTV Code of Practice and Standard Operating Procedure, and draft CCTV signage on public exhibition for a period of 28 days. And C, if no submissions are received, that the draft CCTV policy and draft CCTV Code of Practice and Standard Operating Procedure be adopted and placed on the Public Policy Register, and the draft CCTV signage for the Albury CBD be implemented. Now I'll have a drink of water. Thank you.
Well done, Councillor Vanderman. A second, I have Councillor Thurley.
Happy to second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Did you wish to repeat it? Councillor Vanderman, did you wish to open debate on that?
Look, it's a really, obviously, it's something that we knew that was on the way, especially with the contract for implementation of the CCTV cameras operating in the CBD and Vault Lane and QE2 Square. And it's something that I've been expecting for some time to come forward, and I think it's they've done a great deal of work to make sure that this reflects current thinking and policy around Australia and for that matter around the world as far as these sort of policies and codes of practice are concerned. So it's great to see they've been put forward in this documentation, and I look forward to the rolling out of the CCTV cameras in our city. And the impact it might have on antisocial behaviour in our city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman. Question, Councillor Thurley.
Through you to the most relevant member of staff, can someone advise when the evaluation framework will be available?
Mr. Jenkins.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the evaluation framework will be developed. Some of the principles of that are already in the documentation. It'll be evaluated over the next few months, and as outlined in the Code of Practice, there'll be a 12-month reporting of that to Council, the General Manager and the Audit Committee. So I imagine it'll be in the next 3 or 4 months so we can meet those deadlines.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. There being no further questions, Councillor Vanderman, did you wish to close debate?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Happy to put that motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. CM 14.4, review of organisation structure. Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Mayor.
stand by. We're just watching Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Ferris leave the building. Thank you, Mr. Stutchbury. Councillor Stutchbury.
Well, while we're waiting,
You leave the room.
While they're leaving the room, can I just advise Councillor Vanderman try something like she sells seashells by the seashore 5 or 6 times before?
Yeah, well. Okay, thanks, Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that Council. There's an amendment to this. the amendment will be entitled D. I'd like to move that Council A, receive and note the report on the organisational structure, brackets, macro level, review and the ongoing stage implementation of service and efficiency review. B, adopt the revised organisational structure attached to the report for inclusion in the 2017-18 operational plan and 2017-21 delivery program as a result of this review and to be given effect from 1 July 2017. And C, continue to receive on a 6-monthly basis a further report from the General Manager outlining progress with the service and efficiency reviews and as future opportunities for organisation structure change present. And D, that Council commission an external review of the organisational structure of Council and its service delivery capacity to be performed by an independent consultancy with terms of reference to be decided by councillors, to be commenced in time for the report to be available for perusal by councillors in the first quarter of 2018.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. Looking for a seconder for that motion. Thanks, councillors. Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, did you wish to open debate, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I am fairly new to council, 6 or 7 months, and when I arrived it was all quite mysterious and I thought everything was set in stone and had always been done this way, but over time I've discovered that that's not the case and that the present organisational structure may not necessarily be the best that it could be, and that although our delivery programs seem to deliver well and on time and on budget, we've got to be looking ahead to 2030 as well, and we need to know that our delivery programs will continue to be able to do that, in which case the organisational structure might need to be changed. Now, I'm not an expert on organisational structure, and I don't think many of the councillors are either. And I think that we would all, both councillors and staff, benefit from an external review, which might tell us that everything's absolutely fine, which would be great. But if the external review suggests changes to improve efficiency and improve delivery plans, then I think that can only be a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. Just one thing in relation to D, is it appropriate to have macro level after organisational structure there? Are you comfortable to
I'd be
put that
quite
there?
comfortable with that to be added to the amendment, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Con, you comfortable with that being added?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So we just add macro level after the organisational structure, macro level. Or organisational structure of council, macro level, I think after council, yeah. Okay, we have a speaker against, Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm totally in favour of A, B and C. I don't believe that it's necessary to add Part D. This would, in my opinion, probably cost council $30,000 to have this independent review done. The necessity for the structure to be its best is acknowledged even by the General Manager, who in the report given to council indicated that we continue to receive on a 6-monthly basis a further report from the General Manager with the service and efficiency reviews, and as future opportunities for organisation structure change present. So the General Manager is well used to looking at possible changes in this organisation, and in fact the biggest change in my time was we lost one director, and that was a decision of the General Manager after our Finance Director resigned. And I noted earlier in the March quarter review, budgeted efficiency savings of $397,000. The other question I would ask is, we regularly review the performance of the GM and we always rate him highly. And yet this addition seems to say, yes, but we don't think he's all that good on this bit and we need an external review. I think it would be a waste of perhaps $30,000 or even more to achieve something which I believe the General Manager has been achieving and delivering good results for this council, at least for the last 4.5 years that I've been on council.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. I have a speaker for Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support the initiative of Councillor Stutchbury with the addition. I think that I'm in the same boat as him. I've come to council and been here a very short time. I think the General Manager does a fantastic job. I also think, though, that someone coming into an organisation, when you have 3 new councillors that look at the organisation again through fresh eyes, and certainly then raise something that's an external review, I don't think it can hurt. I think we have a fairly extensive budget of 120 plus million. If Councillor Thurley's estimates of $30,000 is accurate, I don't think it's a large amount to spend. I'm all for the staff. I support the amount of staff that we have employed at council. I just think that there are some things that an external review might give us all some advice of what other people are doing, how that's efficient, what's working, what's not. And I certainly appreciate that the General Manager is a very hard worker, and this may give him the opportunity to have, again, some fresh eyes at the organisation, external from councillors, external from directors, external from anyone else in the organisation, external from another council, and I certainly recommend it.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Vanderman, speaker against.
Yeah, it's disappointing again that we have a situation where I've got to speak against Part D of this motion. It appears that everybody thinks that the General Manager is doing an above-average job, and I think that really sums up what this exercise is about. So let's come out and let's do the General Manager's review properly and say what we think in those General Manager's review, and not have the result of an above-average, performance, and then try and second-guess him with situations that he's already covered up on. Everybody knows that a report by an independent consultancy will come up with whatever answer you want it to come up with. So from my perspective, all it is a waste of money. And on the history of some of the votes that have been happening over the last month or so with the budget and some of the things that we've knocked back because we shouldn't be spending this money, this is by far the most outrageous waste of money that's ever been proposed in the time that I've been on council. We appoint a General Manager, we pay him good money to run this organisation. We give him an above average rating every time that we've done a performance review. And yet we're going to second guess him by saying, let's get an outside consultant to make sure that he's doing his job properly. Well, we've already made that assessment. As councillors have already made that assessment that he's above average, and this is what we need to do to support him by voting for A, B and C and not D. This is a disgrace. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
So, Councillor Van, take this opportunity. Would you be foreshadowing that you foreshadow that as an amendment?
I would foreshadow that D be removed from this particular motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a speaker for Councillor Con.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly rate the General Manager very highly, as I did at his latest performance review. I think it's hard to make macro-level decisions when the directors in question are people that you work with every day. I'm certainly surprised that some councillors here balk at making a decision about an alcohol-free zone at Monument Hill without further information, but they're willing to sign off on the structure of the whole organisation for the next 4 years without extra information. Approving the structure of the council is something that a new council has to do within 12 months of an election, and it's what we're being asked to do now. It may well turn out that the results of the review are completely in line with what Mr Zaknish wants to do, which will give us additional confidence in the work that the staff's already doing. There were a few things that surprised me as a new councillor. For example, the imbalance of staff between some of our directorates. Particularly as a young person, I often see that things are done a certain way because they've always been done a certain way or with incremental change over time. I think it's worth getting a fresh set of eyes in, looking at the structure from scratch and making sure that we actually have the best structure and form to meet the function and the services that we provide. And if that turns out to be what we're already doing, then I think that would be a great result and it would give us the confidence to continue over the rest of the term.
Thank you, Councillor Con. Speaker against, Councillor Gleichen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To speak against the inclusion of D only, I support A, B and C that were in the original motion. And I would support the suggested foreshadowed motion of Councillor Van der Ven, not because I seem to have supported any suggested amendment of Councillor Van der Ven tonight, but simply because the evidence we have before us and the evidence of this council over many years is that the council is doing very well. The General Manager has suggested changes within this review process. Those changes are in our report. The General Manager has also acknowledged that as time progresses and the service and efficiency reviews continue, it will raise future opportunities with regards to the organisational structure. The Blewett Award was not won lightly. It was a significant achievement of this council. It indicates that this council is at the top of councils within New South Wales. Councillor Con has just raised the issue of being surprised of the imbalance between directorate staffing numbers. It's not surprising, and that nor is the screen going up. It's not surprising of the staffing imbalances at council because that is the work that council does. It's a very detailed organisation. It's a large organisation which has many areas within the directorates. The size of those is dependent upon the work being done within those areas. So it is not surprising that there is an imbalance between staffing numbers. The council runs very efficiently. If it were not running efficiently, then we would not see those savings being made. We would not see the Blewett Award. We would not see the progress that we are making towards the Albury 2030. It doesn't matter so much what the structure looks like as it does what that structure achieves. And clearly the structure that the General Manager has crafted over the years that he has been here working with the directors has achieved what our community needs. So it doesn't matter so much what that structure might look at. It's the work that is done underneath that structure. I do not support asking a consultant to come in and tell us what that structure should be. Local government is a very specific creature and it is specific by state. I believe that one can look at the councils across New South Wales to glean that our structure is appropriate when we compare ourselves with the group of councils that we fit within, not the huge city councils and nor the smaller rural councils. But for where we are well placed with our structure, the planning decisions that are made, and indeed the time to make those planning decisions. We rate very well with our peers, those councils across, those other councils and local government areas across New South Wales. I support the motion, what was, I believe, A, B and C, what was on the board, and not the addition of D. However, I can understand from some of the questions, from some of the amendments and from some of the motions being put forward by the more relatively new councillors, as was suggested, 3 new councillors that are around the table. I can understand that they may not understand yet what local government is and what our council structure is. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. I have a question from Councillor Vanderman, but I'll just activate that projector again for you before we take that question. And then I have a speaker against, Councillor Doxey. Councillor Vanderman.
Just I suppose through you, Mr Mayor, to ask if we do get to the stage of getting an independent consultancy, would we or would we not have to implement the recommendations of that independent consultancy?
Mr Zachnich.
Thanks for the question, through you, Mr Mayor. So similarly, in terms of the report from the General Manager this evening, it's for the matter is for Council to determine. So the report would come to you in a similar way for consideration, bearing in mind you'd have input in accordance with the suggested motion to the terms of reference and the like.
Councillor Vanderman, you happy with that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doxey, speaker against.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will speak for the motion A, B and C, but against the inclusion of Delta. I see that as unnecessary. I see a likely potential for $30,000 or more to achieve an aim where we could decide that it's not worth the effort. I appear to be one of the 6 tired-eyed councillors that appear to be stuck in the mud and not wishing to make changes, but that is not true at all. I think we've empowered the General Manager to make a structural change. He's rebalanced the organisation, and I think that rebalancing is suitable. I see no purpose in having a consultant come in because, as an auditor, they will always look for a fault. And we could end up with a 3-hump camel from this. A 3-hump camel doesn't serve the community very well. I see no purpose whatsoever, and I will vote against the inclusion of Delta. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doxey. That would appear to be everyone that's spoken. I'd like to just speak briefly in relation to this particular motion. And as the Mayor of the City, I have taken a lot of questions and had a lot of discussion with the 3 new councillors about issues concerning council and issues pertaining to all things to do with council. And I appreciate the commentary from our existing councillors, past councillors, in relation to the 3 new councillors' view and their vision in relation to our organisation. But I also acknowledge the fact that they are new eyes, and new eyes prevail and allow us to include new opportunities. In the last 4 years, we have been through T-Corp assessments, joint organisation assessments. Certainly we've applied for awards, AlburyCity, a prestigious award for council. However, a lot of that information was contingent on the information we supplied. Now, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that the General Manager, and this is not in any way, as I see it, an indictment on the General Manager's ability to run his business. It's up to us as the Board of Directors and to our shareholders, the ratepayers, to deliver an impartial and transparent service to our community. Now, for us to self-regulate and to determine that we're going great is fine. But I would suggest that in the last 4 years, the General Manager has been in charge, he has performed above average, and I agree, he has done a wonderful job. But again, conversely, this particular proposition could work greatly in his favour and certainly our favour as directors of this company, to be able to say without doubt, transparently and to our community, that we do care and that we are regulating ourselves. Now, I don't see anything wrong with asking an independent consultant to have a look at the business and ask us, or with consultation of council, to determine that our structure is delivering on its promises, and we have till 2030 to deliver on those promises. And I would probably suggest that the general manager is on the money. But for us to be transparent, independent and fair as directors of this company, the Albury City Council, I believe we need to include D, and certainly this motion has my support. Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury, did you wish to close debate?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't spend a long closing debate because I think everything's been said, but councillors Doxey, Thurley, Van der Ven and Glacken seem to suggest that by proposing this amendment I was criticising the GM, or perhaps implying that the GM's not able to run or restructure his organisation, and that is most profoundly not the case. The purpose of moving this amendment was so that someone from the outside whose vision's not clouded by having to deal with the people that he works with every day can look at the structure and give us advice. We don't have to take the advice. We can look at it and we can cherry pick what looks good from it. There's been a fair bit of criticism about the cost of it, and perhaps it'll be 30 to 50,000. It is a small amount of money that could reap great rewards down the track if a restructure, if suggested, proves successful. I don't think that this is an outrageous or disgraceful amendment at all, and I commend you to all support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. I'm happy to put the motion. All those in favour?
Call for division, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Venn. All those in favour? Councillor Stutchbury, Councillor Mack, Councillor Con and Councillor King. Those against? Councillor Doxey, Councillor Glacken, Councillor Thurley and Councillor Van der Ven. And it's a tied vote, so I have to use my casting vote, and I vote for the motion as printed on the board.
Mr Mayor, can I call for division, please?
Yes, Councillor Van der Ven, the division was had.
So the votes have been recorded.
The votes have been recorded. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you. Officers' report for noting there are none. Delegates' reports for noting there are none. And we have any notice of urgent business. Councillor Thurley?
Sorry,
No?
officers to
Yep.
return, Mr Mayor.
Our confidential item is now up for discussion. Councillor Van der Ven, could you ask the staff to return, please? Have you got the wording for the confidential? Thank you, councillors. We'll move back into open council, and for the record, the confidential item was just discussed and the motion carried. The Council A, consent to Cleanaway's request to extend the interim curbside organic service until the JRPP decision is known, and B, vary the contingency plan side deed and licence of use of the Albury Waste Management Centre expiry dates to reflect the extension. And that motion was carried. Thank you, councillors. There being no further business before council, the council meeting is closed at 8:13. I have a question from Councillor Doxey. Councillor Doxey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Your indulgence, please. The last 2 days I've been involved with the New South Wales RSL State Congress, 2 more days to go, and there have been some very, very positive comments from visitors from across New South Wales about how clean the city is and how friendly the city is. So thank you again, Council, for what you do for the city.
Thank you, Councillor Doxey. Councillor Vanderman.
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, I'd like to have a look at the sound levels because it was still able to be heard outside the chamber with the doors shut. So might just as they're confidential items, and I'm not sure what the rules are around the. I know we've got to be out of sight of the chamber, but it's still possible to hear the conversation through the microphones, and it shows that the system's working pretty well, but we might need to look at the sound levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vanderman, for bringing that to our attention, and Mr Zaknich will take that up with the IT staff. So the meeting is closed at 8:14. Thank you, councillors.